If I could go back and give my younger self some advice, these are the things that I wish I had known sooner. I spent so many years pushing myself so hard that I completely burnt out. I had to reevaluate my goals and reconnect with my love for creating. Along the way, I learned some tough but valuable lessons that I want to share with you so that you can avoid the mistakes that I made and continue growing as an artist and make art that you love and feel connected to. I think most artists need a reminder sometimes to draw what you're passionate about, not what you think will sell. The pieces that connect most with people are usually the ones that you cared about while you're creating it. It took me way too long to realize that creating artwork to chase trends or please algorithms or follow what is popular, or just generally making art that I thought other people would like, was killing my creativity and leading me to burnout. A lot of people find themselves in a position where they've built an audience or a business creating artwork that doesn't really inspire them, and you can tell that their heart isn't in it because they're not inspired by the type of artwork that they're making. That lack of passion shows in your art, and people can feel that energy even if they can't explain why. I tend to be drawn to strong lighting or interesting or ugly looking animals, and I like to add a lot more kind of obvious pastel strokes or fewer fine details and bolder colours that aren't necessarily in the reference photo or considered natural for that subject. Whereas a lot of other artists in the pastel and coloured pencil space tend to draw softer, cuter looking animals with very natural colours, often on white backgrounds. Both types of artwork look beautiful and they take a lot of skill and effort, but what I'm drawn to is a little more niche, which helps my work stand out and look a little bit different from other people's work. And I'm not intentionally trying to stand out from everyone else, but I am intentionally thinking about whether I'm drawing a specific subject or a reference photo because it inspires me, or if I'm trying to please everyone else. Over time, you'll discover that you end up finding your own audience that really loves the work that you create as well, because there are always going to be other like-minded people who enjoy the same things that you do. This is one of the reasons that I stopped taking on pet portrait commissions. I love drawing dogs and cats and horses, but I want to have the freedom to choose my own reference photos or adjust things in ways that suit my own vision. I also don't want to draw dogs every single week of my life. I lost passion for art because I wasn't spending enough time creating something that gave me that spark of joy and inspiration. That being said, if you have a pet portrait business or that's your goal, I'm not telling you to stop doing that, but I am telling you to give yourself some breaks between commissions to create artwork that truly inspires you so that you don't burn out and lose your passion. I wish I knew that the quote, "build it and they will come," is a myth, especially for art. If your goal is to sell your art or grow your audience in some way, it doesn't matter how great your art is or how aesthetic your website is, people won't magically find you unless you put your work in front of them. I know a lot of artists hate the idea of marketing or dealing with numbers or any part of the business side of an art career, but these things are so important if you're trying to make a living from your art. If you want to keep doing art as a hobby and income isn't important to you, there's nothing wrong with that either. But for those of you who are trying to turn your art into a career that supports you and your family, you need to make enough money to continue working on your art business. You're allowed to love what you do and also make money doing it so that you can continue doing what you love without having to work elsewhere. Marketing can be as simple as just sharing your process or your thoughts, the works in progress, your studio, opinions, tips, finished artwork, as well as little glimpses of your personality and day-to-day life. You don't have to share your entire life with the world, but you can start by sharing more in general. Interacting with your audience and other people in the community is also really important to help build trust and personal connection. You don't need to show your face or film videos if you don't want to, but you do need to let people in a little bit. The internet rewards honesty more than perfection. Depending on what kind of art career you're working towards, you may need to look into how to market toward your ideal audience. For example, if you're creating art tutorials that are for other artists, your social media and marketing will look very different from somebody who's trying to sell their work to people who are collecting art. There's a lot of free information online about business and marketing, or you can choose to do a course or hire someone to help you. But I'd suggest starting small and just taking the first step of posting more on social media to help grow your audience. Before you even start creating a piece of artwork, choosing the right reference photo is more important than you think. Just because a photo has very clear details and looks pleasing as a photograph, it doesn't necessarily mean it will work well as a drawing or painting. And this is just my personal opinion. It does come down to personal preference depending on how you want your artwork to look, but it took me a while to sort of figure this out over the years. If you're drawing someone's pet as a commission, you may want to choose a photo that clearly shows all of the fur details and the colours and the markings that make that pet unique. And you may prefer something with very even lighting and kind of looks a little bit flat in terms of reference photos. But again, this comes down to personal preference. For my own artwork, I look for reference photos that stand out in some way. Sometimes I can't pinpoint exactly what draws me to a photo, but it's usually something about the stronger contrast between the shadows and the highlights, or interesting lighting in general, or just unique poses and angles of the subject. Starting out with a photograph that has something more interesting about it like that is going to translate into your artwork as well, and your subject isn't going to look as flat or kind of boring as it might look if you chose a photo with something that's interesting about it, if that makes sense. You also don't have to copy the photo exactly. I always edit my reference photos to change the composition and the colouring, but you can also crop your reference photos, add or remove elements, and adjust lighting and contrast. You can also combine reference photos using the colouring and details from one photo and the position of the subject from another. Sometimes we forget that we don't have to copy the photo exactly. It has taken me quite a long time to start showing more of my own artistic style rather than copying the photo exactly. And if you look at this example, I drew this grapevine quite early in my pastel journey, and it is almost an exact replica of the photo. It is technically very well done, and you can't really see any of my pastel or pencil strokes. And I do love how this looks, and I can appreciate the amount of skill and time it takes to create something like this. However, I was so bored with this piece by the end of it because it took a ridiculous amount of time to draw, and there isn't much to show that it was created by a unique artist with their own personal style. If you're happy with copying photos exactly, that's completely fine. A lot of people do that and it works well for them, but the most important thing is that they enjoy doing it. But for me, I want to add bolder colours and show more pencil or brush strokes or include my own personal touches in some way. If you're trying to move away from copying the photo exactly, if you start slowly by adding or changing or removing little things that you don't like about a reference photo, and by editing your colours or composition, you'll gradually start to develop your own unique style, even if you don't realise you're doing it. A lesson that I learned pretty quickly is that you don't need art school or galleries to succeed as an artist. You can absolutely build a full-time career on your own terms. Most successful full-time artists and creatives that I know are self-taught or learnt their skills through online courses or tutorials. A lot of artists who choose to study in art school or college or some sort of higher education end up regretting it because they feel that they didn't actually learn any drawing or painting skills and they didn't really learn how to make a career from their art. Obviously, that's not the case for everyone, and some people enjoy their time at art school and found it useful, and it obviously depends on what kind of art school you're going to as well. And I'm not here to tell you whether or not to go to art school, but I am here to say that it's definitely not necessary to make a living as an artist. And this is the same with galleries, and these are both very traditional ways of thinking to go to art school and get yourself in a gallery. It's really not necessary this day and age with the internet available. If your goal is to make a living by selling your artwork, you don't need your work in a physical gallery to be considered a professional artist. A few years ago, I almost joined a gallery, but after a lot of discussion, I decided not to because the commission that I would have had to give them didn't make sense for me. There are so many different ways to make an income as an artist. Not only can you sell your original artwork or commissions online, you can sell them in person at shows or competitions. You can also sell prints of your artwork on canvas or paper, merchandise like homewares and apparel with your artwork on them, Or you can license your artwork so that other companies can use it for puzzles or calendars or books or things like that. You can start selling digital downloads if you're interested in the teaching aspect of art. So you can do things like PDF tutorials, you can offer courses or create membership options like Patreon to share video tutorials. You can run in-person workshops or retreats, or offer one-to-one coaching or critiques, whether that's online or in person. And you can also become an influencer on TikTok or YouTube if that's something that you would consider doing. There are so many options to suit your personality and the way that you want to share your artwork with the world, and you really don't need art school or a gallery for any of these opportunities if you don't want to. Something I never even thought about before I was forced to consider it is that life can change in an instant. Whether you're a hobby artist or trying to turn your art into a career, remember that your life can change suddenly. As an autistic ADHDer, my rigid thinking made me believe that success meant sticking to my plan no matter what. Then chronic illness and burnout hit me in 2021, and I couldn't even get out of bed, let alone make art. I spent too long beating myself up for not doing enough. I told myself that if I wasn't sick in bed, I should be working on my art business. There was no space in my life for actually resting or enjoying hobbies or spending time with my pets or my family or friends, because I told myself that I didn't deserve to do any of those things since I hadn't done enough work. And all of this can also apply if you're creating art as a hobby. You're allowed to spend time on your art despite what you may or may not have been able to achieve in your life recently. Some days you may not have much time or energy, and your best effort might be just setting up your art materials or sketching for 10 minutes, but that's still progress. Rest, slow days, and non-creative breaks are also part of what keeps your art sustainable long term. I learnt that adapting to changes in my life doesn't mean giving up on my goals. It means staying flexible enough to keep going when life shifts. Whether you're having health-related struggles, caring for a family that requires a lot of your attention, juggling a demanding job or studies, or just facing changes in your finances or dealing with any other obstacle that life might throw at you, your goals can survive as long as you're willing to evolve them. If your job is your art, you may need to adjust your goal timeline or pivot how you're running your business, or tweak your goals to match your new time limitations or energy levels. You're allowed to enjoy life, and you need to do things that rejuvenate your mind and body and help you on the road to recovery. Finding that balance will allow you to spend more time working if that's what you want to do, or more time creating art or doing things that you care about, spending time with people you love, and also sustain that balance without staying stuck in a cycle of burnout. If you've chosen to make art your career, you need to be even more mindful of that balance. To stay passionate about creating art, you need to spend time being creative, even if it's in a way that differs from your art business. I have to keep telling myself that done is better than perfect. I'm sure a lot of other artists can relate to perfectionism, and it's something that I really struggled with for many years. Trying to make every piece flawless only guarantees that you'll finish fewer drawings and paintings. Art improves through momentum, not obsession. Good enough is the secret to getting better. Every finished piece is a stepping stone and not a final destination. Now, I'm not saying to create substandard artwork all the time, but your level of perfect is probably much higher than what others see as perfect. And this applies to anything that you're doing in life, but I'll use a piece of artwork as an example. Once you get to about 95% finished, and now you're just adding tiny little details and making small adjustments because you don't feel that it's perfect yet, you're probably spending a lot of additional time changing and adding things to your artwork that no one else is going to notice in an attempt to make it look flawless. Wouldn't you rather create 2 or 3 drawings or paintings in the same amount of time that it takes to make one drawing 100% perfect and flawless? I'm not suggesting that you rush through all of your artwork just to move quickly on to the next piece, but for me personally, I feel a sense of achievement every time I finish a piece, and I feel motivation, inspiration, and excitement when I start a new one. I also learn new things and improve my skills every time I create a new piece of artwork. So instead of spending hours adding tiny details and altering the colours slightly and making changes that no one else is going to notice and wasting time on things that don't really improve my skills or bring me joy personally, I've learned to stop when a piece is done and not continue until it meets my version of perfect. And this is especially important now that I have limited time and energy to put towards creating artwork and working on my business.